Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Water Week 2025, and welcome to Center Stage. I am Archie Davis. I will be your moderator for the day. A few practicalities before we begin. Please look around the room and locate your nearest fire exit. Should we need to, exit through these doors and collect outside the conference space. Please keep your mobiles on silent out of respect for our panelists and, of course, your neighbors. Please also use the conference spaces for networking around the building, but also our online platform to connect with participants who are here this week. And with that, I would like to turn to open this week's program, Helena Tibel, Executive Director at CIWI, and Suzanne Halling-Duffy, Director of the World Water Week. Over to you.
Thank you, Artie. Our theme this year is Water for Climate Action, and it could not be more timely. The climate crisis is a water crisis. We feel its impacts through worsening floods, rising sea levels, shrinking ice fields, wildfires, and droughts. The signs are everywhere, from drying rivers to flooded cities, from failed harvests to forced migration. And yet, in water, we also find the solutions. As the new Executive Director of CIWI, I share with all of you the conviction that water is not just part of the climate story, it is the key to rewriting it. And 2025 gives us a historic chance through World Water Week and COP30 to embed water resilience into global climate action. Together, we must translate ambition into action.
And this week, World Water Week, is where our collective call for water and climate action is amplified. This is where global communities meet to connect, challenge, and create. Thousands of participants from around the world, business leaders, policymakers, scientists, civil society, students, bring unique knowledge, passion, and purpose. This is an inclusive space that fosters collaboration, with equity at the heart of the conversation.
Together with many of you, CIWI is proud to be part of a broader movement to strengthen water's role in global processes. Platforms like the Water for Climate Pavilion help connect what starts here at World Water Week to international negotiations. As we look to COP30 and the 2026 UN Water Conference, our shared challenge is to keep the momentum going, and this week is where it begins.
As we all know, the real heart of this conference is you, the participants. But it's also the incredible program we create together. Our scientific program committee provides World Water Week scientific core, and they have produced over 20 seminars to help us shape the dialogue. We hope you'll join these conversations. And as we celebrate water leadership, we're honored to welcome this year's Stockholm Water Prize laureate, Professor Günther Blöcher. We'll meet him here on Center Stage on Wednesday.
Youth engagement is also central to this week. Across sessions, young professionals, students, and innovators are influencing solutions. On Tuesday evening, we will celebrate the finalists of the Stockholm Junior Water Prize at City Stockholm Hall, remarkable young innovators whose work is displayed just outside.
We're looking forward to a week of courage and clarity. Courage to act boldly, clarity to focus on what works. The conversations we have, the ideas we champion, and the alliances we form.
From this stage and with all of you, we open this week, not only with hope, but with resolve. Let World Water Week 2025 be remembered as the place where water became the beating heart of climate action. Welcome to Stockholm.
Welcome to World Water Week.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the call to action is clear. Bring down the barriers, keep the momentum going, and proceed during the week with courage and clarity. Next, we are really happy to have a conversation that reflects continuity and renewal. 2 new boards at SIWI and the Stockholm Water Foundation. We welcome Tom Pernella, the new chair of the SIWI board, and Åsa Lindhagen, Vice Mayor of Stockholm.
Thank you.
Tom, I want to ask you first, as the new chair of the SIWI board, how do you see the organization going forward? And what does the World Water Week represent in that vision?
Well, thank you, Artie, and it's a pleasure to be here. Well, I'm extremely honored to lead the new SIWI board at this transformative moment. The board is a diverse group of global water leaders reflecting the international perspectives of World Water Week. As we develop a new strategy for SIWI, however, we remain committed to our mission, working together with our partners to advance a more water-wise world. We are focusing on enhanced partnerships and strategic clarity to sharpen SIWI's focus and increase impact. And I'd also like to thank many of you here who've already contributed to this process. The new board is, in its vast collective experience, has also been instrumental to help support Helena's leadership and the organizational evolution of SIWI. And of course, World Water Week will remain as SIWI's flagship and bridge between global policy and practical action across sectors, borders, and generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Also, Stockholm has hosted the World Water Week for decades. We are going into its 35th year. What does the World Water Week mean for Stockholm, and how does it engage the city in global dialogues around climate and water action?
Well, I would like to start with saying that we are very proud in Stockholm that we have hosted the World Water Week for so many years. And I think that underscores the city's commitment to water and the climate issues. And I strongly believe that cities such as Stockholm play a crucial role in the transition to a sustainable society. And it's extremely valuable for us to have such an important gathering where we meet from different parts of the society and we can learn and we can explore new solutions. And furthermore, I would like to add that cooperation around water is a key for peace and security in these very troubled times that we are living in. And in that sense, the World Water Week is an arena for what I believe the world so desperately needs, dialogue and diplomacy and hope for the future.
Thank you so much. An arena for diplomacy coming together. I want to leave this one question with both of you. You heard already, in the few minutes we've been on stage, that we connect the Stockholm Water Week, the World Water Week, to COP, to UNGA, to everything coming forward in the next 6 months. The participants here today will join those mega events. What would you like them to take with them from this week, but beyond? Tom, maybe I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think a key message is that collaboration is essential. No single actor or sector can solve the water climate challenge alone. The question is, how do we make this collaboration real and move beyond the same familiar conversations to forge new partnerships, engage new voices, and stimulate action that reaches far beyond the water community? Well, we must embrace new partnerships, new voices, and new sectors and new communities and challenge ourselves. The most important step we can take this week is to turn our discussion into action, impactful action. That means having the courage to take risks, to test new strategies, and to work together to ensure our commitments are accountable, sustainable, and resilient. Above all, it means making sure the benefits reach everyone and no one gets left behind.
Powerful. Åsa, no one.
Well, I believe, I totally agree with Tom, and I believe the message from Stockholm is very clear that we need to act. So what is the climate crisis really about? It's about extreme weather events that are becoming harder and harder to survive. And it's about access to food and water. That's what's at stake here. And I have to say that I'm actually really angry that too many politicians don't take the responsibility that we need to take for human security. And I'm furious, actually, but I believe that anger can actually be a good thing. But what truly matters is to turn that anger into action. And that's what we work with in Stockholm every day. And I also think, like Tom said, with collaboration, we need to work together with allies, because when we work together, we can succeed. We can build a better future together.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
We are now very, very honored to deliver our opening remarks for this year's World Water Week, Her Excellency Retno LP Marsudi from the Republic of Indonesia and also the UN Special Envoy on Water. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Excellencies, colleagues, distinguished participants. I want to quote Vice Mayor also mentioned, we need to act. Yes, we need to act. And it is an honor for me to be part of this World Water Week. And of course, congratulations to SIWI for your leadership. And this event serves as a good momentum to reflect, assess, and accelerate our global water agenda. We are all here because we understand that our water is facing so many challenges. Our water today is not well, either too polluted, too much, or too little. Water challenges are existential threat to humanity because water is life and every aspect of our lives depends on it. At the same time, colleagues, we are all here because we want to contribute to address these challenges, to address the issue that close to our survival. Most importantly, we want to address it together, through cooperation and collaboration. The spirit of cooperation should be continuously nurtured. The we spirit, not I spirit, should always be the basis of our endeavor to address water challenges. Colleagues, no one is immune to water challenges. Every single one of us is affected. Water is both the victim and potential contributor to climate change. Profoundly, weather challenges reveal themselves through climate change. And in reverse, climate change manifests its primarily through challenges in water sector. This makes water and climate change become two sides of the same coin. If we fail on water, we will fail on climate. This is the vicious cycle that I call the spiraling down of water-climate nexus. And to end it, we must break the cycle. In less than a year serving as the UN Secretary General Special Envoy on Water, I'm more convinced than ever that to break the cycle, we need strong and robust action on water together. Water resilience prepares us, help us respond, and enable us to adapt and address climate change. Only then we can transform water from being a potential contributor and the victim of climate change to be the solution of climate change. Colleagues, at this Water Week, let me emphasize 3 priorities to make water become solution to climate change. First, prominent watermark in climate agenda. While water is transparent, it must not be invisible in our climate action. It is time for us to raise strong collective call that water must be at the heart of climate action. With the Baku Declaration on Water for Climate Action, last year COP in Azerbaijan has opened the way. We must not waste that momentum. Let us build upon it and ensure that water is not left behind in climate processes. In every statement that I made, I consistently highlight how water and climate are closely interlinked, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Second, strong waves of action. Again, action is very important. The current world situation cannot afford business as usual. We can no longer do the same while expecting different results. Current world challenges demand agility, effectiveness, and tangible results. And this is why we are in dire need of concrete action in water to multiply progress in all areas of sustainable development. But to achieve concrete action, we need everyone on board: government, private sector, civil society, think tank, the United Nations, and all of us, all stakeholders. Together, this is my brief story, together with the UN resident coordinator, I recently visited East Nusa Tenggara in Indonesia, a province that always encounters scarcity of water for the whole year. We are able to bring better access to clean water to the people through collaboration between all stakeholders. The enthusiasm of the community is key to the success of the endeavor. And on top of clean water, the endeavor also generated economic empowerment, strengthened food security, and advanced gender equality. And I encourage the Water Week to do the same, inspire, elevate, replicate action for multiplied impact to the people everywhere. And my last point, build up the momentum of cooperation. We need to ensure the continuation of international cooperation on water for the future. In doing so, we need to ensure international cooperation delivers and fits for purpose. And to do that, we must use this Water Week to generate transformative proposal and suggestion. And through constructive and inclusive conversation, let us push our mind to its limit into creating innovative solutions that will contribute to the future of water. We must ensure that the we spirit is born among us in this Water Week and turbocharge the international cooperation in water. So let us not waste a single moment to make momentum, generate action for our water and for climate with prominent watermark, water action, and maintain water moment. We will address both water and climate challenges, and in turn, we will appease the existential threat to humanity. And I thank you very much.
I saw a lot of heads nodding in the audience when Her Excellency said the we spirit. What we're going to have now is our first panel to see how global processes can do a fit-for-purpose strategy. I'm going to welcome on stage Tom Slaymaker, Senior Statistics and Monitoring Specialist, WASH UNICEF. Dana Kopatsky, Head Freshwater Ecosystems and Wetlands Unit, Marine and Freshwater Branch, UNEP. And Jessica Rosenwald, EU Commissioner, Environment, Water Resilience and a Comparative Circular Economy. Thank you all for being here. Jessica, I'm going to start with you. You heard Her Excellency talk about creating a fit-for-purpose environment and how the water agenda can be progressed in the global climate space. The EU has launched, of course, its new water resilience strategy. Tell us, how do we fit these two together? What are the next steps? How do we make those targets achievable?
Oh, very good question. First, let me say I'm also not only EU Commissioner, but also from Sweden. So I'm also very proud to be here. Of course, I'm not from Stockholm, but still. So I'm very proud to Stockholm have shared this every year for so many years, and good cooperation. One thing more that I'm very proud of is that I'm the first EU Commissioner with water resilience in my title. And I would say to start with, I think from an EU perspective, and maybe also strangely enough from Sweden perspective, we have taken water for granted too long, but now we have put water high on the political agenda, and I think that is a very important message also to say here, because we really think it's important. And from my short experience so far, the interest has been very, very strong, which is a good thing, because it's exactly what we said earlier. We need to link the climate and water together. But it's a really difficult question. We put forward the water resilience strategy in June from the EU, and one thing, of course, is the working together on a global perspective, because, of course, water doesn't know any borders. But the water resilience strategy, I would like to say one thing that we worked on, the method that we worked, and this is an EU perspective, of course, is that we worked together, both with member states, with municipalities, regions, but also with other stakeholders like businesses, because they also need to be a part of this, and NGOs and people, of course. So that's a little bit on the methods, and now we need to implement that. That will be a little bit difficult, of course, I know that. But we have like 3 parts of this, how we would like to work with a resilience strategy. It's on and how to restore the water cycle from seas to source, from source to sea, and then also on making Europe the water smart. And that implements both innovation and bring everybody on board, but also on how to use water efficiency first. Because as I said, we have taken water for granted too long, and that is not the case anymore, not even in countries like Sweden and Finland. So we need to be more careful about how we consume. And also there, I think the innovation will be part. So that is one thing. Funding will be important of that, of course, but also on the global perspective, because we also know that one of the 3 pillars is affordable water for everyone, because it's a human right? And that is something that we work very hard also on a global level, both when it comes to different sharing best practices, working with global gateway and so forth. So it's not going to be easy. I'm again talking from a European perspective, but one of my challenges is that in EU we have had so many laws for many years now, actually, but we have some problem with implementation of this. So that would be a struggle from in European perspective. But then the funding gap is huge, and that comes for everybody. So that we're looking into innovative funding methods and private and public cooperation and so forth. So cooperation has been mentioned from many people already on the stage, because we need to do this together. But one good thing, I mean, it's bad because we see more droughts, we see more floods, we see wildfires, we see all this coming more and more intense. But the good thing, if you may say so, is that there is this momentum, and as I said, from my short period as an EU Commissioner responsible for water resilience, is that the interest is there, not only from politicians, finally, you may say so, I can say so, but also from other stakeholders. So that's the positive spirit that I also bring with me.
Jessica, thank you so much. I'm going to go from that EU perspective to a global perspective and say, how do we align and create those best practices? Funding gaps, of course, and actually working together to create policy into action. Diane, I'll come to you. You heard Her Excellency Marsudi also mention the COP to COP strategy in terms of the Baku Declaration for Water and Climate Action. So we had that moment at COP29. How do we take that forward?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I think we are seeing the momentum, but I think when we look at ecosystems, when we look at the whole global hydrological cycle, we also have the opportunity to unlock financing that has not been seen or accessed before. So I want to just place my, my intervention under that guise that we know where water comes from. It comes from nature at its heart. And the Baku Dialogue on Water for Climate Action was an ambitious COP29 presidency initiative from the government of Azerbaijan. And through that engagement, UN Environment Program, the United Nations Economic Commission of Europe, and the World Meteorological Organization, as well as a number of other UN agencies, supported the negotiation of the first ever water declaration on water for climate action. This recognizes water's central role in climate resilience, but then it's been endorsed for more than 70 countries already, with 25 different stakeholders as well. These actors then transformed that water declaration into a program which we're developing now called the Baku Dialogue on Water for Climate Action. It's serving that need of continuity, of bringing from climate COP to climate COP the initiatives and efforts through this freshwater and freshwater ecosystem lens. And it also aims to establish an inter-COP engagement. So by ensuring that putting nature at its heart, we can get attention to freshwater ecosystems across both climate, biodiversity, land degradation, and other interlinked global agendas. And that's what we're seeing here at World Water Week, that previous World Water Weeks were maybe a little bit removed from that global agenda setting. And it's really excellent to see that actually there is this connectivity for the last years and an inspiration. It really empowers decision makers, gives them the confidence to take that work forward. And the Baku Dialogue will be an incredible vehicle. It calls for strengthened international, regional, basin level dialogue and cooperation. It also will work to identify the science gaps so that politicians and policymakers have access to science that speaks to them and that is from their regions. So it gives them confidence to actually go for those high wins during those negotiations. And finally, it will also try to enable and amplify working across policies and plans as instruments to really get engagement consistent. So not only starting from COP29, we're pulling back from previous COPs because we know water was in climate COPs previously, and Azerbaijan has been doing an amazing job reaching out through their diplomacy to previous presidencies. And also excitingly, we have during the Bonn meeting, the SP62, we had Brazil really excited and committing to co-host the next high-level Baku dialogue in Belém. And we really hope, we aspire that this Belém and Baku dialogue will draw pledges. It will draw contents and draw the inspiration from the EU water resilience strategy as well as other ambitious strategies. In Latin America and the Caribbean right now, the president of Peru held a water summit, and we're seeing that those prioritizations of freshwater and freshwater ecosystems coming through those regional discussions, and we hope and expect that those will land nicely as well at the UN 2026 Water Conference on the stop-off point through the UN Environment Assembly at the end of this year, and also stream through beautifully through the G20 and the G7 dialogues. We really know that when we protect, conserve, and sustainably manage fresh water, which is at the center of the Baku Dialogue, we are going to have this transformation, unlocking new finance, inspiring new action, and respecting water from its source.
Thank you so much. And I think what we're hearing now is kind of a red thread through the conversation, starting with Her Excellency talking about the urgency creating visibility, and having you, Jessica, as the first person with water in your title, and what's coming with the Baku Declaration. Water becomes this enabler. Urgency is a momentum that we perhaps need to harness to move forward. And that brings me to you. We have looked at the GGA. They, of course, are looking at how they can take forward these actions to use water as an enabler across all sectors. How do you look at this?
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation. I'm sitting at UNICEF headquarters and working with WHO on global monitoring of WASH, and we've been doing that for many years, but we're increasingly looking at new metrics for monitoring climate resilience. And this global goal on adaptation provides a very powerful hook for us all to work on. I think everybody knows that it was established in Paris and operationalized through the UAE framework. But not everybody knows that there are 4 targets related to the different dimensions of the adaptation policy cycle. So impact vulnerability assessment, planning, implementation, monitoring. And then there are 7 thematic targets, which are looking at the priority sectors for adaptation. And the first among those is water, which is fantastic. But also we have targets for food and agriculture, health, ecosystems, infrastructure, poverty and cultural heritage. So there's a process now between UAE and Belém later this year to develop new indicators that will allow us to measure and monitor progress on adaptation. And what's interesting, I'm one of the experts, which is part of this group advising the parties on how to approach this, building on some of the lessons from SDG monitoring. And what's interesting is that all of the experts are recognizing the central importance of water for making progress under all of these other targets. So whether it's food or health or ecosystems, infrastructure. So for example, water resource management is absolutely critical for climate resilient agriculture. Restoration of ecosystems, climate sensitive diseases, trying to reduce losses and damages associated with extreme weather events. So there is no question that water is important. The question is, how do we link with these other sectors? So on the one hand, it's about trying to embed water and sanitation into the adaptation policy cycle, trying to make sure that water issues are mainstreamed into national adaptation plans to ensure that this is a central part of the approach to risk and vulnerability assessment, and it's embedded into all aspects of the plan. But we still have a very long way to go. I think many of these plans are aspirational, and they're lacking actionable targets, and in particular, the budget needed to implement them. And then on the other side, it's about getting the water and sanitation sectors to progressively address adaptation in the sectoral plans. And there's a big discussion going on, and it will continue this week, about the extent to which this really just means doing the same things better. Is it really just about good water management, finally good water management and incremental change? Or is it about a much more radical rethink of the way in which we approach this in order to adapt to climate change? In other words, a complete transformation of the way in which we address the issue. And of course, we have to recognize that governments are at different places on this spectrum. So there's already a huge amount going on. We're going to be discussing it this week. This is already a major focus of UNICEF's water and sanitation programs on the ground. We're focused on the poorest and most vulnerable children who are least responsible for climate change. But the big question is, how are we going to track and monitor progress on water-related adaptation over time?
Tom, that's a lot, because we have a lot to work with here and a lot to do. But what you've said is that we have new metrics. Jessica, I'm going to come to you with this. New metrics, new ways of looking at the problem, but also, are we doing things the way we need to be doing them, but we should do them better together? So, of course, we come back to the EU, and you mentioned and you touched upon the challenge, as Tom said, taking aspiration to action. Having the policy, having the process, but actually now taking it to the ground level. From your perspective, Jessica, looking at water as a key enabler, how do we take these next steps to make the strategy actually something that can be embedded within process?
That's one thing that I think a lot about, actually. I mean, first I said, when we started working the water resilience strategy for EU, we worked very much in dialogue, because I don't think that, as I said also, we have a lot of policy, a lot of legislation. Of course, we also have a lot of old infrastructure problem with cleaning water and so forth. But I think we really need to do this in tandem, all different parts that are interested in or need to be in this dialogue. I think that is one key. With that said, I don't think it's easy, but I think that making people and businesses and politicians like me aware of the situation is important. And one thing that has struck me is that when I meet businesses, they know now that they are dependent on water, both clean water and water as such. So that is one thing. But I think, so I think a lot about it, but I think the next step for me is to see that member states, that is what I can do, implement what we already have. What I also can do is to work with, so I work a lot with governments in the European Union, but also, of course, regions, because water is in the European Union not something that, I say, not Stockholm as its own can work with. It has to work with other municipalities and sometimes also over borders. But then again, businesses are key because they need also to drive the innovation. Of course, we do a lot of funding when it comes to innovation and different things, both within the European Union, but also outside. But also we need the innovation to get, because we cannot do this alone. So we need them to be on board. Again, but also people need to be aware. So I think awareness is key also in this work. But back to monitoring, because you ended a little bit, but where is the answer? Because of course I think a lot about monitoring, and that is also key. So I'm looking forward to the next sentence from you. Just to end, I think the Baku Declaration is of course key, and that has been mentioned already. We need to take water into all the other COPs. Because we cannot think about it in silos, and that comes to we politicians. We are very, very good on thinking things in silos, and that is not the case. We cannot do that anymore.
Well, then that brings me to Dana. How do we take it cross-border? We've talked about the EU and, of course, the struggle to bring things together at the member states, taking into action the importance of regional collaboration at the city level. But then we go cross-border, and we have the Baku Declaration. What can we do here to keep that water prioritization continuing?
Well, I think that the challenge is, of course, monitoring, also just knowing where water is and understanding also who and how we need to use it. I think we have a lot of lessons that we can learn from indigenous people, from carers of the earth, that actually bring their traditional knowledges forward, to recreate and rediscover innovation. So I think that in many places we actually have to lean back on nature and also bring that to meld with the current science. And UN Environment Program, of course, with WMO and UNECE and Azerbaijan, we will be working on these three streams of work, including, setting the agenda, really helping countries to be ambitious, to also bring across the multiple Rio Trio, but also in the discussions that are coming up at the 2026 UN Water Conference, and also within the UN Water community, where we have a system-wide strategy. The Baku dialogue is something that needs to be supported. It needs all of you who have the assets and the opportunity to engage. Thank you so much as well to the EC for supporting UNEP in launching and through some seed funding the Baku dialogue on water for climate action, and the implementation of a water resolution that all countries came together to adopt last year. But we need more. We need joining forces. We need to, we're in the era where competition is over and collaboration is the opportunity that we're grabbing.
Thank you so much. And I want to leave the last word, Tom. We've heard monitoring now repeated by all our panelists. Last word, call to action to everyone in the room. What do you want to see as we go forward when it comes to monitoring? You have 5 seconds.
Well, we're just about to launch a report looking at progress on existing targets, and we can see that there's already still a very long way to go just to achieve the 2030 SDG targets. We're about to layer on top of that a whole set of new and complicated issues. And it's very important that we keep those in balance and we ensure that we build on what we've done before. But we do also need to recognize that we're going to have to start doing things differently. We're going to have to start bringing in new indicators, new metrics, new ways of thinking, and we're going to need to embrace that in order to address the scale of the challenges that we're facing.
So embrace change. Thank you all. Please give us a warm hand of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. I am now delighted to welcome on stage Anton Earl, Global Coordinator for Water Systems at ICLEI, who will showcase some of the inspiring entries from CitiesWithWater, the international photography competition. Anton, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. We take a look at the video that is playing now, the photo entries from the CitiesWithWater photography competition, and I'll speak a little bit more about that. It strikes me that it's really opportune that we are standing over here today because it's 35 years anniversary of the World Water Week. And it's also 35-year anniversary of the establishment of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, that I represent. And ICLEI was formed in the early 1990s to represent the voice of local government across the 3 Rio conventions of climate change, of biodiversity, and desertification. And here we are. And when you look at the global changes that have been exerted through climate change, it becomes evident that it's the alteration of the hydrological cycle that is really impacting cities and local governments at that very local level. But you know, when you speak with mayors and with ward councillors that are representing the residents of cities, they don't respond to language like saying alteration of the hydrological cycle due to anthropogenic changes and so forth. They talk about water being too much, too little, too dirty, much more direct forms of speaking, because that reflects the reality on the ground. And all too often, what happens on the ground stays on the ground. We lose touch with seeing what is happening on the ground. So that is why ICLEI and the World Water Council is running this series of photography competitions and the webinar series on Cities with Water to hear more about what is really happening on the ground. So using the visual storytelling mechanism, which is a very powerful medium for really allowing people around the world to show us what is that reality. What does water look like when it is too little, too much, or too dirty? And that really allows greater participation and greater voice at global events such as this, such as the World Water Week in Stockholm. So the competition was generously sponsored through the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, through ARUP, and through the World Water Council, with winners and prizes across the 3 categories, as well as a specific youth prize for youth entries. And I must add as well, we received the majority of the entries actually came from young people telling the stories of their community, and also not just showing the challenges they live with on a daily basis, but crucially showing us some of the innovation, some of the approaches they are taking to addressing the realities on the ground. So this afternoon at 12:30 at the Netherlands booth, we will be showing the 16 shortlisted entries that you've been looking at over here. You'll have the opportunity to hear a little bit more about these entries and what they represent. And we'll also be able to show you a link to the background descriptions of these entries. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, at 1 o'clock at the UK Pavilion, ARUP has very graciously offered to host the announcement of the winners of the photography competition. So there we'll get the chance of hearing who were the winning entries and seeing those entries and being able to congratulate those winners. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing all of you and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, you've heard today during the discussions that we've had the UN 2026 Water Conference come up a few times. So the World Water Week this year, we are very happy to have the co-hosts with us today to talk about those preparations. I want to welcome on stage His Excellency Abdullah Bilala, Assistant Manager of Foreign Affairs for Energy and Sustainability, Government of the UAE. Welcome. I would also like to welcome on stage Dr. Mohamed CBC Diatta, Senegal Sherpa for the UN 2026 Water Conference. Your Excellency, could we please ask to hear your reflections on what to expect from 2026?
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is truly a pleasure to be with you at the opening of this year's World Water Week. Let me begin by extending heartfelt thanks to SIWI for convening this vital gathering. To SIWI's team, you have built not only a platform, but a global community of expertise and purpose, and we are deeply grateful for it. As co-host of the 2026 United Nations Water Conference, the United Arab Emirates regards this week as a critical milestone on the road to 2026. It is a moment to align our collective wisdom, strengthen partnerships, and reaffirm our shared commitments to SDG 6, water and sanitation for all. Over the past year, our consultations have spanned continents, from Bali to New York, Stockholm to Cairo, Baku to Riyadh. These dialogues revealed three truths. First, water is a life, and water is everywhere, yet it remains under-prioritized. Second, the community is rich in expertise and solutions, but stronger coordination is still needed to unlock its full power. And third, in the absence of a regular global forum, World Water Week has become the indispensable convening point for water diplomacy, innovation, and action. We saw this firsthand in 2023, when Stockholm gave us the platform to launch our water agenda for COP28. In 2024, we returned with an even greater responsibility as co-host of the 2026 United Nations Conference, and we anchored our consultations here and across the world. Last month, those consultations bore historic fruit. By consensus of all 193 member states, 6 themes for the interactive dialogues of the 2026 were adopted. This is no ordinary achievement. It is a watershed moment in multilateralism. These themes emerged from one of the most inclusive processes in the UN water history. Over a year of global consultations, an organizational session in the city of New York with interventions from all concerned stakeholders, and 5 member states groups representing over 150 countries, with more than 4,000 participants joining virtually. And a global survey reaching countries worldwide, with nearly half of responses from women and 1 in 5 from youth. They are comprehensive, covering all SDG 6 targets, aligned with the Global Acceleration Framework and reflecting interlinkages across the 2030 agenda. Now, the journey accelerates. Just last week, the UAE and Senegal issued a call for expressions of interest for co-chairs of the interactive dialogues. As you can see, we're giving enough time to co-chairs to come up with a substantial outcomes for the 2026 UN Water Conference. But let me be clear. This process belongs to all of us, whether governments, international organizations, civil society, academia, the private sector, or even philanthropy. Every voice matters and every hand is needed. The 2026 UN Water Conference is not just an event in the UAE. It is a process a process of preparation, delivery, and follow-up. And it is a chance to transform how the world treats its most precious resource. This year, in Stockholm, the theme of water for climate action could not be more timely. Water is the front line of climate change, from floods and droughts to food and energy insecurity to forced migration. One of our 6 interactive dialogues, Water for Planet, will spotlight these interlinkages and will be building on the progress of the 2023 Water Conference, the landmark UAE framework for global climate resilience agreed at COP28 in Dubai, and the Baku dialogue for water and climate action launched at COP29. Our vision is clear. Forge partnership, embrace innovation, and drive accountability. With your expertise and your leadership, we can deliver a 2026 UN Water Conference that is not only remembered, but that truly reshapes the trajectory of global water action for decades to come. Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, the stakes could not be higher. Every minute, children lose their lives to unsafe water. Every hour, women and girls are denied opportunities because of water scarcity. And every day, communities confront climate shocks made worse by water insecurity. And so I close with this call. Let us seize the opportunity before us and act with urgency and unity. Let us transform this week into a launchpad for the decade ahead. And let us ensure that when the world gathers in the UAE in 2026, we can say with confidence, the tide has turned for water and the world is stronger for it. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you so much. Dr. Diata, you heard the words that we listened to in terms of the multilateralism, the watershed for multilateralism, in terms of 6 new themes. What legacy does Senegal and the UAE want to leave as we move towards the UN conference 2026? Please.
Excellencies, distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to carry the voice of Senegal at this World Water Week 2025 on behalf of the Minister of Hydraulics and Sanitation. My country is currently facing the consequences of floods, which, while under control, has caused significant destruction. These challenges serve as a powerful reminder of the urgency and relevance of this year's theme, Water for Climate Action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we know that the future of water and the future of climate are inextricably linked. Prolonged droughts, recurring floods, and ecosystem degradation are no longer scientific projection. They are our daily realities, causing humanitarian crises and security-related vulnerabilities. Behind every water crisis, there are faces and lives. A family losing its livelihoods, a school forced to close, a hospital unable to deliver care, a community plunged into deeper vulnerability. It is precisely to address these systemic challenges that Senegal and the United Arab Emirates have agreed, with a sense of duty and ambition, to co-host the 26th UN Water Conference. We are determined to mark its historic milestone, one where the international community proves that words like solidarity, inclusivity, implementation, transformation can be translated into an operational roadmap. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to break away from the status quo and make bold strategic shifts. First, break away from fragmented responses and build integrated, sustainable water governance. Break with inaction, which costs more and more every day in terms of human lives, lost development opportunities, and compromised peace. Third, break with short-term approach and thinking, and make water a central part of our climate, energy, food, health, and policy strategies in a more lasting way. Only by doing so can we forge a genuine coalition for water and climate, bringing governments, local authorities, civil societies, the private sector, scientists, youth, and communities. Dear friends, no country or continent can turn the tide of climate change alone. The 26th UN Water Conference will be organizing around 6 interactive dialogues, as His Excellency mentioned, which together will outline a holistic and transformative vision for the global water agenda. Water for people, water for prosperity, water for planet, water for cooperation, water in multilateral processes, investment in water. May I take this opportunity to allow me to warmly commend the South Africa presidency of G20 and the African Union for the successful African Water Investment Summit held last week in Cape Town. With the participation of head of states and the launch of the Global Outlook Council investment as South Africa G20 presidency. Thank you to Her Excellency Pemi Majorina for your leadership on this role. It is equally encouraging that the African Union has chosen to designate 26 as the year of water in Africa, coinciding with the adoption of the renewed Africa Water Vision, guided by the African Ministerial Council on Water, chaired by Senegal, to achieve the Agenda 26th goal on water security and adopt the common vision of Africa for the 26th UN Water Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the world expects us to deliver concrete results that can transform the lives of 2.2 billion people without access to safe drinking water and 4 billion without adequate sanitation. In this spirit, Senegal will host, in collaboration with UAE, a high-level preparatory meeting in Dakar on 26-27 January 26. This will be a strategic milestone to consolidate the 6 interactive dialogues and align stakeholders' priorities with the global agenda. I wish to extend to all of you, a solemn invitation to attend. In closing, colleagues, without resilient water, there can be no climate resilience, no sustainable development, and no lasting peace. But if we join forces, water can once again become what it has always been, a common good, a catalyst for cooperation, a bridge between peoples, nations, and shared future. The floods that my country is confronting today remind us of the vulnerability of the fury of water, but they also reveal the immense potential power of collective actions. Together, like Retno Masudi, Special Envoy for Water, said, let's make water not a victim of climate change, but a promise and an enduring legacy for future generations. Finally, let me express my gratitude to SIWI for once again convening this indispensable World Water Week. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So you take it. Thank you so much, Dr. Theata, Your Excellency. We're going to take a quick photograph in the front of the stage to commemorate this moment. Thank you so much. Warm round of applause. So now we turn to our second panel. You've heard today aspiration to action, funding gaps, and fit for purpose. To discuss these, I welcome on stage Taylor Galvin, Brokenhead Ojibwe Nation, Treaty 1 Territory, Manitoba. Bapan Vakruddin, Water and Climate Leader, Green Climate Fund. Johanna Barata Correa, Global Head of Strategic Sustainability Topics at IKEA. Welcome. So Taylor, I want to start with you. You've heard now during the morning a key theme for the upcoming UN 2026 Water Conference is inclusivity and multi-stakeholder dialogues. And of course, a central part of this will be the involvement of Indigenous communities. From your perspective, what are you looking to achieve in 2026? And if it's relevant, what more can be done?
Yes, thank you. So bojuanin ojo amashkode bejike ndishnakas na me dodem baskanda be izbingishna be aki undunji. My name is Brown Buffalo. My colonized name is Taylor. I'm a very proud member from the Sturgeon clan from Brokenhead Ojibwe Nation. Thank you. I'm very humbled and very honored to be here today, and I'd like to acknowledge the Brokenhead River in Lake Winnipeg, the waters in which I come from. For myself to ensure that Indigenous voices are a part of global dialogues, we need to go back to those original teachings that we carry as Anishinaabeg people. One in particular is that of humility. We need to walk in a humble way. We need to acknowledge that not one person is better than the other. I may be a student, but I carry knowledge that's thousands of years old that predates the science as a discipline itself. We must be humble enough, whether you're a politician, a leader, a scientist, a lawyer, a doctor, to understand that Indigenous voices are what is needed to move forward. Because we have an advantage. We walk in two worlds. I walk with one foot in environmental sciences that's full of statistics and data and graphs and charts. But I also walk with one foot in a world that you may never understand, and that's the one of Indigenous science. And we are scientists. We're very scientific. The only difference between our science and yours is that it also carries spirituality. It carries the rhythms and the hearts of Mother Earth. We feel what she feels. When she cries, we cry. When she struggles, we struggle. Her pain is our pain as well. And for our women and our youth, I don't sit here and pan-indigenize everybody. I don't speak on behalf of all Indigenous people, but I carry generation after generation of water teachings that have been passed down from my aunts, my mothers, my grandmother. I'm going to start crying. Because this is so important to me. I'm made of water. I'm birthed in water. Our women are our water protectors. They're our knowledge keepers. They're the life givers. They are the spirit. They're the reason why we're here today. But our voices have been silenced from colonization and patriarchy for long enough that I believe that we are the way forward. And I don't want to be here and just be a measurable outcome. I'm not an objective, I'm not a box to check, because our knowledge is what's going to move forward and what's going to actually protect the water, because we've been doing it far longer than these things have ever been in existence. And so I'd like to say Chimigwech for the invite to be here and to know that all of those young women that I work with back home are watching now, and we're creating space for them to be here as well. And our water is so sick and it's so hurting in my home community. We can't even drink from the rivers anymore. We can't swim in the lakes. Industry has impacted our water so much, and in order for us to move forward, our voices need to be at that table. We need to not be integrated into the Western world anymore because we stand alone. Our knowledge is standalone, our science is standalone, and our voices are powerful because when we rise, the water rises with us. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think to have that voice on this stage today means a lot to everyone, and we need to take that with us as we move forward. And of course, Bapon, we come to you next when it comes to funding inclusivity of these voices.
Right.
You've heard what Taylor said, and what we can translate that to in terms of how we take this to you in GSF is visibility is critical. And how do we reach the unreachable? How do we ensure what you work with gets the regions that need it the most? Now, GSF works with de-risking financing so you can actually achieve access to those communities. How do we achieve what Taylor's asking for, which is inclusivity?
Excellent questions. Thank you so much for inviting to us. I think as coming from the similar community in New Zealand, we feel like water is actually woven to our, like a thread. So you cannot actually think this as a separate. It's all are interconnected. So our ocean, atmosphere, land, everything is connected. So, but if you look at it still, we are actually doing a lot of silos. We could not able to actually even go out from our traditional approach to a more innovative, transformative solution, but which is actually really needed if you want to achieve those things. It's not only just innovation and transformation in the technology solution. It required in the policy environment, it required into the financing. And when you're looking at the financing domain, still actually, we are actually quite heavily grant-driven. And there is no such kind of innovation is coming to the financing. And that cannot be work if you want to looking at the demand. We're talking about money of $150 to $180 billion per year to mobilize, to support our most vulnerable communities to act on not only for climate change, but also for the water security. But who has the money? Nobody has the money. So we need to be very creative and very clever how we can actually crowdsource the financing. But not only that, actually, we are talking about last maybe my career life is 22 years. I'm listening from my day one, we need to mobilize the private sector. We need to mobilize, they need to create a quite bigger impact. But we are not telling them actually how. You need to understand what are the risks are they actually talking about, and is there any way we can actually de-risk the market? If we cannot de-risk the market, nobody will be investing their money, and you will not be able to crowdsource the financing. So then collaborative and engagement is quite important here on the financing side. But when you're looking at the de-risking element, you need to also understand actually what we are actually trying to de-risk. You need to de-risk the ecosystems in a sense of policy, regulatory function, but also we need to de-risk the instrument, or what are the financial instruments you are bringing. The GCF is quite unique in a sense because we are actually a high risk taker. At the same time, we are actually capital agnostics. So that means we are providing a fit for purpose financing. If you need to create a concessionality for a community who need a 0% concessionality for a tenure of 40 years, we can go up to that level to create an unbankable project to a bankable, so that actually you create or attract the market, so where actually everyone can come and play a critical role. There's a huge challenge into the water industry to bringing those other financiers because they cannot come to this particular field because the asset belongs to the public sector, and there is so much of risk, not only the finance, but also the policy, regulatory. So how can actually create those kind of de-risking element, more flexible, as well as dynamic adaptation pathway? And unless we actually create that kind of environment, you'll not be able to provide those kind of things. So the beauty of with us is that with MDBs, with the DFIs, with the countries, we can utilize any sort of instrument. You need a guarantor, we can give you a guarantor so that the early investor, MSME, could actually able to get a path that actually their investment will not go loss. You need a equity, we can provide you an equity. You need a concessionality at any form, we can actually provide you that any form. You need to have a capacity building as well as policy ecosystem. We can provide you a grant to make those actually happen, so that actually there is a balance between those financing, and you can actually bring in those innovative financing into the market to create a sustainable development. Otherwise, it would be very critical to see that how the whole development process would be jeopardized due to the climate change, and if you're not actually doing things more differently instead of traditional activities.
Bapan, you said now, of course, de-risking the ecosystem. And you mentioned crowdsourcing as innovative financing, but of course also the lack of the private sector. So of course, Yana, that brings me to you, because IKEA, in terms of its map across the scale, you have presence in every global market. You have presence in every region. So of course, when Bapan says we need to understand how to move the needle, how do we move the needle? And that starts with, of course, global supply chains. How do you take the resilience and, of course, water into account when you start planning?
Thank you for the question, Arti. And I wanted to say a special thank you for your statements. It was very emotional. But back to your question. I think it is really about, we have all been trying to do our part, and now it's really the time to sit at the same table and connect the dots. Because then if I look at us as a global business, how we are working to really drive the water agenda forward, I mean, we are a very diverse value chain. And then if you think our business is divided in three main pillars. And the first one is where we are developing and designing products that consumers are using at home. That is pillar number one. The second one is the usual suspect, the supply chains. It's the suppliers and all the way to raw materials. And the third one is the retail operations and other operations. So what we have done a few years back is we took the whole business and we thought, from a water impact point of view, how does this look like? And we, of course, went to priorities are number one and number two. And then it's really about how do you move the agenda forward, of course also together with others, but that is directly relevant to the business and where we can then understand where is the impact that we are creating on a step-by-step, not getting lost in goals of 2050, that, okay, by 2050, but what does this mean in 2 years? We really need to keep the momentum. And then giving two examples, thinking also that water is very local and a regional topic. And we start with the example of the supply chains. What we've done is all the production units that we today use to produce all the home furnishing products, which is then furniture, home accessories and food, we mapped them across the world and we mapped them across the basins that are today identified as water stressed. And then we identified. And then we said, okay, we need to do something, and we start with the freshwater withdrawal. So for all the production units that are located in the water-stressed basins, we have identified a goal that we are pursuing, that by 2030, we will reduce the freshwater withdrawal by 50%. And we launched this a year ago. We are in daily and local connection and dialogue with our suppliers. How do we manage to make this happen? The answers are locally. The people on the ground know it. And it's there that work happens. It's there that impact happens. And then, of course, water being a pressing issue all around the world, it's important to work on the water-stressed basins, but it's also important to give a signal that water is something to work across. So for all the production units that are not located in these 15 water-stressed basins, we said you need to work and reduce 20% of freshwater withdrawal. And why is that? It's to start the conversation. Then we have everybody working, but we're really also able to target ourselves, to really focus on where does impact need to happen fastest and harder. So that is the first example. And then if we go back to the consumers' homes, we also have an example together with our product designers and external partners to really, how do you nudge, on one hand, consumer behavior, but also inspire and make it easier for every single person at home to reduce water consumption. So actually today, in conjunction with the World Water Week, we are launching a global collection of products. So it will be in every IKEA store near you or online, of products that really are aiming at nudging consumers to reduce their water at home. And you can see, but one of the examples is we now have a shower meter that is very easy to retrofit in every our showers, that you can plug, and there you will be able to see real life. How many liters are you using of water in your shower? What is the temperature? So it's immediate feedback. And we know that this will really then, people at home will start comparing how many liters did your shower take. And then also at the coffee break, at the coffee machine at work, hopefully. It's really, people say you can't you can manage what you can measure. How do we start the conversation in customers' home? Water is important for all of us. You all drink a glass of water in the morning. You all washed your hands. So it's really about putting water at the center. And I mean, I would say it's, to summarize, it's about our business, but it's also way beyond our business. Because we really need these forums. We need much easier ways to have methodologies and frameworks that we are all measuring the same. And it needs to be simple enough, because people are already overwhelmed. And where, together with others, we continue working in a very humble approach. We really need to listen to each other.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I want to come back to Taylor here. We do want the applause. But Taylor, you've heard what Bappa and Johanna said, and they both said that it's all local. It's coalition, it's de-risking, it's working together because people on the ground know. What will you say to them in terms of going forward in more global dialogues? You're here at the World Water Week. What do you want to see as we go ahead? And the people in the room, how do you want to be heard?
Yeah, I would like to be heard in various different ways. I'd like to see more representation at these gatherings, on these stages, on these panels. I'd like to see more ceremonies with the water as well, that if Indigenous people were running this right now, we would have started in ceremony. We would have started praying with the water. We would have drank the water. We would have shared the water. We would have sang songs to her. We would have had all of these things included as well. And one of the things that I'll take back with me is this whole experience, because this isn't a personal opportunity for myself. This is representative and a reclamation for all of the young women and youth and elders and knowledge keepers back home as well. And I hope that we get more representation at the door as well, all across Canada and Turtle Island, all across the world, having more Indigenous voices be present, be heard, be valued. I would also like to know that our knowledge and our sciences moving forward become legitimate, valuable ways of viewing the water and working towards climate solutions when it comes to the water, and restoring that connection that we have, because we've lost that connection as Indigenous people through colonization, and we're relearning. And it's my generation that's the ones that are picking it up and reclaiming these and revitalizing those connections as well. And so thank you. For all of the youth that are out in the crowd today, I want you to know how much your voice matters. I want you to know that you are the future leaders, and we are the ones who are going to be working towards resolving the issues that have been caused over the last 100 years. And I know that we are strong enough to do it because we carry thousands of years of ancestors and knowledge behind us, and we carry that responsibility in our hearts and in our spirits. So, miigwech, thank you.
I want to thank you so much for being with us today and to share these thoughts with us as we move forward during the week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You've heard a number of things this morning, the UN 2026 Water Conference, and now we look ahead to COP30 and to Belém. We want to take this moment to talk about the historic opportunity that Belém presents in bringing water together for climate action. And to speak to this, we are very welcome to have on stage Tito Livio Quiros, the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Ministry of Integration and Regional Development of Brazil.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. First, I would like to thank SIWI for the invitation. It's an honor to represent Brazil at this moment of global dialogue on water, a theme that permeates all dimensions of sustainable development. I'm the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Ministry of Integration and Regional Development of Brazil, the body that is responsible for water security, civil protection and defense, and regional development policies. Brazil considers the centrality of water in implementing concrete actions, especially for the benefit of the most vulnerable people. Water is, therefore, a strategic axis for sustainability, connecting public health, food and energy security, biodiversity, transportation, and disaster risk reduction. Its proper management is a condition for fulfilling the commitments of the Climate Convention, the Biodiversity Convention, and the Convention to Combat Desertification. We recognize and commend that in recent international forums, especially COP28 and COP29, the centrality of water in climate strategies has been reinforced, highlighting its relevance as a cross-cutting theme for mitigation, adaptation, and climate justice. However, this recognition must be translated into concrete action, implementing policy and instruments that place water at the center of the climate agenda, strengthening integration with ecosystem and expanding cooperation among governments, private sector, and civil society. The moment calls for going beyond negotiations, strengthening and advancing solutions that ensure water security, socioeconomic resilience, and climate justice, especially for the most vulnerable communities. Although we have made progress in recognizing the importance of water in international climate debates, the Global Stocktake approved by COP28 points to the need to expand and accelerate the implementation of necessary actions for climate and mitigation and adaptation, with concrete positive impacts on people's lives, ecosystems, and economies. In this context, the Brazilian presidency of COP30 calls on the international community to act in an integrated manner, guided by three pillars. One, accelerating the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Two, strengthening multilateralism. And three, connecting climate to people's lives. The COP30 presidency is working to ensure that action agenda, along with all other COP30 dialogue spaces, contributes to addressing three major challenges. One, align the action agenda with what has already been collectively agreed upon in successive UNFCCC COPs. Two, leveraging its existing initiatives to accelerate and expand climate implementation. And three, boosting transparency, monitoring, and fulfillment of both new and existing commitments and initiatives. The COP30 action agenda will be shaped as a repository of concrete initiatives that connect climate ambition with development opportunities in investment, innovation, finance, technology, and capacity building. Guided by the content of the Global Stocktake, the action agenda will be organized into 6 thematic axes and 30 key objectives, including one specifically dedicated on water management. COP30 is an opportunity to strengthen partnerships, share experiences, and expand the positive impacts of programs that already show effective results. Therefore, the construction of the action agenda seeks to leverage initiatives and solutions that are delivering concrete results around the world, tracking the effective outcomes of achieved over time, and adjusting plans when necessary, with a perspective of continuity that goes beyond COP30. As the effects of climate change worsen, these actions need to be expanded and improved, especially those related to water. And to be effective in implementing concrete actions, the involvement of all stakeholders is essential. Governments, private sector, financial institutions, academia, civil society organizations, indigenous and traditional communities, and others. It is also necessary to ensure access to international resources, including concessional financing, and to promote the transfer of technology and best practices. Thus, I invite everyone to join us on this journey that leads to Belém, where the 10th and 11th will be dedicated to water discussion, so that together we can drive the world toward efficient water management, ensuring water and food security, among other social, economic, and environmental needs of society. Tack så mycket. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the close of the opening ceremony. And I'd like to welcome back on stage Helena Tibel, Executive Director at SIWI.
Thank you, Artie. Well, thank you to all our speakers for setting such a powerful stage for the days ahead. And I think all of us can agree that the message from this morning is very clear, that water is at the heart of climate action. And World Water Week is where we can turn ideas into action. Over the next few days, this space, here in Stockholm and online, will connect people and perspectives that don't often meet, building trust, forging partnerships, and creating solutions that will travel far beyond this venue. Everything we do here will feed into something bigger, shaping what we will take forward to the COP30, the 2026 UN Water Conference, and communities worldwide. So, as we open World Water Week 2025, I invite you to make every moment count. Be bold, be collaborative, and keep inclusion and equity at the center. Welcome to World Water Week, and let's get to work.